Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Futures Brizio here, 4 p.m. on Thursday, February 1st, 2024. Hope everybody's having a great week. And just going to highlight a couple of trades I took today and just talk a little bit about the charts and what's happening here. And so let's get right into it. So looking at the indices first. So this is the S&P futures. This is the March contract. And if we zoom out a little bit higher here, you can see we've certainly been trading up. We have this is a 50-period moving average on here, which you obviously don't need that to see the uptrend, but you can see it holds this really well. So what I have drawn on here is, this is the 4-hour chart, which is about as far as I look out on futures contracts, but this obviously is kind of a major swing area here on the 4-hour chart. And if we drop down a little bit, these two yellow lines here kind of represent some shorter term time frame support. We have this one right here, and we have this one here, both which are interesting ones to look at. So yesterday we had FOMC and the Federal Reserve left interest rates alone and kind of hinted at maybe cuts later this year, but they kind of just, as usual, hedge their bet. So yesterday we did see the stock market sell off in the afternoon after that news kind of settled in. And so let's see here. So this was today. So this over here was yesterday, around when the news came out. And we kind of drifted lower last night. We continued that down move today. We broke through this level of structure right here with this candle. And then we came right down and technically took out this one too, right here. You can see the low of this candle right here. And then after that, we started pushing back up again. And we appeared to have bounced off this support level. Now you can see I did take a long position when price broke out and cleared the space in between these two lines. I took this long position, which I'm now out of because we're just getting late in the day and I don't like holding these. It might continue to go up for another hour or so, but like I said, I'm out of it. So what's going to happen from here? Well, of course, I don't know that. No one really knows, but this has been a very resilient uptrend, so certainly we could just continue to go up here and make new highs, and that's great. And in that case, I'll be looking to establish long positions on the way back up. But the other possibility is that since we broke this structure right here, we had this low come all the way down here and break through here, that this move back up could potentially just be a corrective move, and then eventually, as I have these lines, we could theoretically turn and continue the downtrend. Okay, so I'm not sold on either thing right now. I think tomorrow will give us a lot, although tomorrow's Friday. I don't know how much price action there'll be, but I think tomorrow will tell us a lot, that if we go up here and blast through these highs, then we're going higher. If we come anywhere between where it is now and these highs, and we make some really bearish structure back to the downside, that could be the end of this corrective move, and that started with this big candle, and that will eventually break lower. So that's what I'm thinking with the S&P. The Nasdaq is pretty much identical. Here's the NQ. It's pretty much the same thing. Basically it's the exact same thing. We had two structure levels broken. One here, and then this one right here was broken. Now the difference is on this one is that there's also a little structure level right here, which we tapped right into. Okay, and the 4-hour one is actually, which I didn't draw out, similar to the S&P, is back here. So we go back to the 1 hour. We obviously broke through there, but now we're turning back up. So it's kind of the same thing. Are we going to just get a continuation of this uptrend? And then, see it just blast through and make new highs, or are we going to, is this just a corrective move from the break of structure here, especially since we failed to make a new high right here. When this came down here and we started going back up, we failed to make a new high. We didn't even come back to this, equal high over here. and price went down. So this, this could just basically be like a dead cat bounce. So we could see this thing go up and then turn and fall right back. So again, I'm not sold on either thing, but those are the two possible scenarios from where we are now. Just remembering that these have been very, very resilient markets. So I never wanted to bet against the uptrend on this, because every time we think it's going to turn, it doesn't. So we'll see. And again, back on the 4-hour, you can see we're still trading well above the moving average, which again is nothing magic, but it just kind of gives you a general trend direction. And this one, I believe, this is a 200 period on the Nasdaq. I use a longer period one on the Nasdaq because it's just a lot more, the swings are a lot more volatile, and the short time frames don't really grab it too well. So, but again, you don't really need a moving average to see the trend is up. And in the long term, unless we take out this area right here, this is technically still up. But we do have some areas of interest here that I'm keeping an eye on, and we'll see over the next couple of trading sessions what we're doing. You can see I did take a small long position here, which also I'm out of, so I did take one on Nasdaq and S&P, and you can see it's still going up, even as we speak. So I probably should have held it, but like I said, I just got out for the day. All right, so over to crude oil. So crude oil is pretty interesting. We had here on the 4-hour chart, we had price rally off these lows and just kind of chopped its way back up to this previous swing. This was the last major swing before this moved down. That made this new low. We did have a small swing right here, but major swing was up here. You can see we rallied right into it, and then we've fallen back again. In the last 2 days, it's kind of just chopped around. It's been pretty frustrating for a lot of traders. Last couple of days, we've basically been trading, in this area right here. Price really didn't do too much unless you were like really scalping this on a short time frame. And then earlier this afternoon, a few hours ago, this really kind of bearish pattern set up. Where we were, again, we had this low. We kind of took out this structure. It's not a great takeout because it just basically was a wick, and I don't really like I like to see body closes below these lows. But it did wick down below, and we went back up, but we failed to take out this this high up here. We didn't even match it. We came up, failed, came down again. This time, definitively broke through this structure, and then had another rally. This was basically like yesterday and part of today, where we rallied back up again, pretty corrective, and then boom, this afternoon it dropped. And so I did take a short from here. As soon as I saw this really, bearish push down on the shorter time frame, I saw this candle coming through here. As soon as it got below these lows, I just jumped in, and you can see I'm out of it now. But, I took basically the biggest chunk of that little move down. So, I think fundamentally crude oil is still in a position to rally with kind of, what's happening in the Middle East. But unless that really gets out of control, I think, in terms of crude oil supply and the rest of the market fundamentals, I think, favor it going down. So we'll have to see it. And I think there's a lot of indecision because of those two things, which is why we were getting such sideways price movement. And I think, FOMC was kind of putting a damper on everything yesterday, especially. So, so that's it for crude oil. My bias is certainly tilted to the downside, at least back near these lows on crude oil, but we'll see what happens, on this. But there's no doubt, obviously, we're now seeing, lower highs and lower lows now being put in again, and we'll see if that follows through. And lastly is soybeans. I did take a very small kind of scalp trade on soybeans. I did miss a big chunk of this because I was so focused on those other markets. But basically on soybeans, again, we're definitely in a downtrend. Again, here's the 4-hour chart. Lower highs, lower lows, just classic stuff. We did have this pretty impulsive move up, and then a little pullback, another impulsive candle that took out this one. That was giving me a little pause for concern that maybe we were turning and going higher. just because of how strong those were. And that may still end up being the case, but at least for the last couple of days, it appeared that our downtrend may have resumed, and again, we took out structure lows on here today. You see, we broke through here temporarily, popped back through, kind of sucked in, people to go long, including me. I took a loss on this because I went long earlier on this, and I ended up closing that for a loss. And then as soon as it punched back through here, I said, you know what, I think this thing is still going down. But this just is not the nicest pattern in the world, and so it's a little questionable what it was doing. But again, if you're just going by longer trend, you have to assume that the trend is down, right? So that's soybeans, kind of one of my less traded assets, but certainly something I look at just to get away from financials and energies all the time. And these agricultural ones can be just as volatile and nasty. So because they're subject to wind and inventory and time of the year, seasonality, all kinds of stuff that goes into these prices. But the trend still is down based on the longer time frame, and so that's kind of what I base this on. So we'll see what happens if we get another setup going forward, or if this was just a little break and we finally do turn the corner. If you want to look at it from a longer term standpoint, I think we would have to take out this area up here, to really kind of put in a low and have this thing move higher. There is a little, secondary area right here that price got really close to. But, again, to change my bias to fully bullish, or at least mostly bullish, we'd have to come up and take this thing out. And obviously we're nowhere near that, and it looks like we might be making new lows. So that's, again, with futures, I tend not to go out much further than a 4-hour contract, 4-hour time frame, and just kind of see what the trend is, and just kind of mark off areas of interest, where price is likely to react from. Doesn't mean it will turn or, reverse through those or shoot through it, but it's just areas where there's no doubt that price will, react from. And these are the two areas that I see, with this one being the more important one. So, all right. So that's it, guys. I will leave it there. Any questions or comments, please leave them down below. And if you're just finding the channel for the first time, smash that like button, hit subscribe, so you know when I post new content, which is, only a couple of times a week at most. I'm not a YouTube influencer. I don't sell anything. It's just my own views on certain markets. Okay? All right, guys, that's it. I will leave it there. Have a good rest of the afternoon. Talk to you all soon.